Liver King was a very big thing not too long ago. And when he hopped on the scene, he was making a lot of these claims about organs. Eating this way made me a jacked primal. And if you want to be primal like me, you need to eat these foods and cut these certain foods out. And that was clearly not true in terms of how big he was able to get. For some people, they took that when they found out what he did, when he lied, they then started to think that that whole idea of that message is now bullshit.
I hope that when somebody hears me say something that they're like, oh, I can try to meet what Mark said halfway. Because that's the way I usually do stuff. If someone tells me something I haven't really tried before and they're like, hey, maybe this would be a good idea for you to go and do that, I might be like, all right, let me test the waters out. Let me figure out a way to do a couple sprints first before I go out and blow out my hamstring trying 20 sprints.
It's tough. But you're an individual, and you got to make your choices. And you got to try things out for yourself because it's your health at the end of the day.
You know, what spawned some of this was the show Apple Cider Vinegar. And I found that to be pretty fascinating. I didn't watch the whole thing. My daughter and my wife were watching it, and I'd kind of pop in at different times. And I was like, wow, this is some interesting stuff. And my wife's like, yeah, it's a true story. And I'd learned a little bit more about it.
Are you talking about the apple cider vinegar gummies from Bub's Naturals?
Those are amazing.
Wow. Where can they get? See,
those are so good.
That's actually a joke, but keep on.
I know. How come those are so good, though?
They are actually good. We're not sponsored, but they are actually
they taste amazing. But anyway, yeah, I saw that show going on, and my wife was explaining to me it's a true story about this girl that ended up, I guess, kind of sharing information that she felt that this would help cure cancer for people. I think she
liver queened it.
She liver queened it for sure. She was trying to basically, say that she cured herself of cancer. And spoiler alert, I think in the end, turns out I don't think she had cancer at all. And I think there's like a lot of questions still. I think people are still trying to figure out what the deal was with this girl. What's her name is
Belle Gibson.
Belle Gibson, which I kept thinking is like, they keep saying Mel Gibson. Like, what's going on here? But anyway,
that was actually one of the jokes. People kept confusing her name with Mel Gibson's, but it's a really good documentary. I'm not documentary. It's kind of like a show that's based off of what she actually did. But I think it's pretty cool on how it kind of screams to what's going on today. I think there is a benefit in the spread of health information. One of the things is we both care about our health. And there's a lot of things that we do for it. There's a lot of things we look into. There's a lot of people we have access to learn about how to improve the health of ourselves and the health of our families. And we want to share some of those ideas with people. But, when somebody, I think a point of frustration, that is a valid level of frustration, is when you hear so many different people come onto a show like this. One person says fasting is great and it helps people out and it's great for your health and it can help actually even, reverse type 2 diabetes. Then you have another person come onto the show and say there's no research to show anything about fasting is beneficial. There's nothing about it. It can cause a high level of like, well, what's true, what's not, but there's just a lot of nuance within these discussions for who's it for, when you should try it, how deep you should go with it. Because some people will just try to do a water fast off the bat, whereas some people will be a little bit more conservative with their practice, right? So it's very difficult for people.
And then who are we to say that, like, we don't think that a particular amount of fasting is dangerous, we don't really know you, like each person is different. I remember years ago just having to fast to like get blood work done. And I was like, oh man, like I can't eat until noon. This is back when I was powerlifting,
Mm-hmm.
And I would be like, oh man, I wonder, how's training going to be that day and all these different things. And so when we give a recommendation, what I'm hopeful of, obviously not everyone's going to hear these words or hear this particular episode, but I hope that when somebody hears me say something that they're like, oh, I can try to meet what Mark said halfway. I'm hopeful that, because that's the way I usually do stuff. If someone tells me something I haven't really tried before and they're like, hey, maybe this would be a good idea for you to go and do that, I might be like, all right, let me just test the waters out. And if someone was to say, hey, do 20 sprints or something, and I didn't have any background with sprinting, I would say, let me figure out a way to do a couple sprints first before I go out and blow out my hamstring trying 20 sprints.
Yeah, there's a lot of things to think about, but I can understand like the frustration. Like I said, I mentioned she liver queened it, but Liver King was a very big thing not too long ago. And when he hopped on the scene, he was making a lot of these claims about organs. And, if you want to be primal, you need to eat this way. It first started off, eat this way, which as a message, and I think this is where it's tough to be as this girl, her message was on like health foods and eating healthier, eating whole and organic. And
she became so popular and she was so like accredited and valued that I believe Apple utilized like her app. She had an app where you can kind of mix foods together. Now, I don't think that had anything to do with cancer. And I don't know if she was sharing any information about cancer at that time, but she was into like holistic eating, natural eating, organic foods, and things like that.
And when I was watching this again, I'm only on episode 2, so I'm going to finish it. But it's quite interesting because it does show how it started off. It started off somewhat innocent. She was trying to sell organic baby products, right? No crazy claims, nothing about cancer, but it started off with a good intention on health. Brian Johnson, aka Liver King, probably started off with a good intention in terms of trying to get people to eat organ meats, which do actually have health benefits. The things that she was talking about are actually healthy. But then it turns into, oh, this stuff cured me of my brain cancer. And for him, eating this way made me a jacked primal. And if you want to be primal like me, you need to eat these foods and cut these certain foods out. And that was clearly not true in terms of how big he was able to get and the results he got.
It wasn't the only thing that he was doing, right?
It definitely wasn't the only thing he was doing. But it's tough because then it kind of just muddied the whole idea of the things he was talking about. For some people, they took that when they found out what he did, when he lied, they then started to think that that whole idea of that message is now bullshit, which it's not. But since organs were related to Liver King, now why would I even do that shit? Liver King talked about it and it's bullshit. And it's not necessarily BS. The supplements probably were, and some of the other stuff probably was, but there was still some good in the message, which is tough.
He took it really far, nowadays, at least you see him with some clothes on here and there for a long time. I think he was showing up at events like UFC and all kinds of things. He was like getting into places somehow with his shirt off. Every podcast he did, he was just like in short shorts. He just took it to the extreme. And I think when people start to lie, not only lie, but then say other things about other people, I think that's when you start to really get yourself in trouble. And that's what I saw him do. He would say if somebody was taking steroids that they were subprimal, right? And we saw the same thing with Lance Armstrong, where he was going after people and he was talking trash about other athletes that were utilizing stuff. And you're like, it's a huge, I guess, like deceit in the end. The thing is, in the case of any of these things, I think it makes it just very hard to decipher what someone's actually trying to communicate. I think it's pretty clear that the Liver King he had a lie and he just felt like he had to continue to perpetuate that lie, and he just could never go back. And I would agree. I don't know how you would go back. I don't know how you'd be like, hey, remember I said I was natural? I'm actually not natural. But I actually don't think it would have really negatively impacted some of the sales of some of his products, because
if what?
If he admitted that he was on them, like as he was going, if he said, hey, look, man, you know what? A couple of weeks ago, I was on a podcast. I was put on the spot. I didn't know how to react to it. And I messed up. And I said I was natural. It's actually not true. I actually, I don't think it would have really hurt things that much, but I don't even really know if anything has impacted his sales. That's the interesting thing about all this, is that attention is attention, and it just gets more people kind of attracted to what you're communicating. And again, it gets to be confusing because a lot of what he said, going outside, grounding, shield, having the ability to defend yourself, like all these things, these are all great principles. And I think anybody would agree that there's a ton of nutrients in a lot of the stuff that he promoted and talked about. So it makes it very confusing to kind of get through all that.
That's there is one thing though, with him, right? I don't know if he was You know what? No, with what he was putting forward, I think maybe it did make it kind of seem like he was trying to sell a bit of a miracle, because he was making kind of black and white statements like, you need to eat like this, you should use these subs, and what people do, what you know, we want to seek generally is like we want to find something that's going to get us results, right? Ozempic is going to get people results, right? So, and with that girl, this diet cures cancer. It's a very bold claim. It's a miracle cure, right? But the thing is it really, the thing that we talk about all the time are the things and the actions that you take every single day that you do for a long time. I'm not going to go in deep on them, but like getting good enough sleep, quality sleep over a long period of time with the stress that you're putting on your body, eating enough food, eating enough protein, not eating too much food over time, right? Developing better habits as far as your movement, getting outside, all of these foundational things. And then the thing is though, we also do have people that come onto this show that sometimes do say some wild shit. Usually I think we do a pretty good job of questioning, but when I was watching this documentary, it made me think, do we do a good enough job when we're like really questioning some of these things? Because when I say this, I don't mean things like I've done cold and it's good. So when somebody says something about that, it's not crazy. Whereas some people still think cold plunging is crazy, but there have.
Yeah, but you and I are pretty sensitive. So like I would be very upset if someone told me, hey man, I tried it and I got really sick, or I felt, I had to go to the emergency room because I even tried just 50-degree water, and it just, people are going to have different reactions to different things. And like, I would hate for any of the things that we ever mentioned on the show to hurt anybody, but it's probably inevitable.
Yeah, and
to some degree.
Richard to say this, we had him on the show a few years back. He did say that he does know some people that got into a cold plunge, had a violent sympathetic response because they couldn't calm themselves down, and it was very bad, right?
And we don't really have any idea of knowing who those people are that are listening,
right? So it's one of those things that like, I don't think we can necessarily, or we should stop. I'm not going to stop sharing the information and the things that I learned and the things that I find beneficial for me. But at the same time, it's the responsibility of whoever is listening, it is your responsibility. If you find something interesting, to test the waters. Like, this is why we always talk about things like blood work. This is why we always talk about getting certain tests done. I tell people to get DEXA scans done twice a year, right? And the reason is, it's because, it is good to turn to your doctor for certain things, but it's also good to understand your metrics for where your health is, so that when you make certain changes, maybe some changes that you might hear here on this show, or some changes you might hear on Diary of a CEO or any other podcast, that you're not blind to the potential effects that it might be having for you. Maybe it is really doing something really good for you and it's a change that you caused. Or, maybe it's bad. I mean, we can't even talk about supplements out there that are just actually tainted with shit, right? People buy, I've used Shilajit a little bit here and there, but that's one of those supplements that you see is being sold on really, really dodgy websites. And it makes me think there's a lot of people who are getting some weird stuff in their system, because I know that shit ain't being tested. But influencers are talking about Shilajit as being a magical test booster. And I see that, I'm like, I know most people aren't buying quality shit.
Well, supposedly a lot of the stuff on Amazon is fake, and that's where I a lot of times get my stuff. It's convenient, and then I think like, oh, well, I know how to shop differently because I can pick out a better brand or something. But supposedly those brands are being picked off all the time, so you don't really know. Sometimes it's sold by like a third-party person as well, so you have to really like look into it. And I actually just think what would really be helpful if people just discontinued just getting any supplements from Amazon. Like, just go to the main source, like whatever the company. I'm not saying that verifies that company's stuff is legit, but we know that it appears that there's a lot of stuff from Amazon that just is not right. And I know that, being somebody that sells products as well, you're giving more money to the actual person, So if you want to support, if you're buying a supplement, partially because you believe in the supplement and you want to try it and you want the results, but also because you want to support something, I think you're best off just going to the website. And so many websites work a lot better than they used to. Oh, yeah. Like Amazon had a huge leg up for years just because you could pop on there and just push a couple buttons and you were done. But now it's like all the other ones, they have, Pay Now and Apple Pay and all different kinds of ways of paying where you can get in and out of stuff really quickly. Something I want to address that kind of just popped in my head is that influencers are marketers. Really, that's what a lot of influencers are. They're marketing something. And some people are just marketing ideas sometimes. Sometimes they're innocently marketing like, hey, I'd love for you to try this. A lot of times, though, like as Liver King did, which I think is super clever, is Liver King, he would like eat raw food and he was jacked and he would do kind of outrageous stuff. You didn't see a lot of his supplements, especially in the early days when he first started coming on the scene, when he had like 200,000, 500,000, when he started getting in the millions of views and stuff. He didn't really sell you the product at the end of he didn't sell you the product anywhere. There was no mention of it. It wasn't like Mike Israetel, or wasn't like some of these other guys who in every post that they always have like a little caption of like where to buy their stuff. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but he didn't do that. He didn't mention his product at all. And he wasn't promoting organ supplements. He was promoting
later.
He was promoting eating organs, period. And he would just eat organs all the time. And I think that there's something interesting to that. But what people should keep an eye on is that the influencer is also a marketer. Now, what gets even more disturbing is that science and studies are also forms of marketing. And what happened recently with Ozempic's been around forever, been around for a long time, been around for like 15 years. Mm-hmm. As soon as it got recognized as something that could be safely utilized, according to the FDA, for weight loss, that's when everything went nuts. It was already approved for diabetes, but I don't think people put two and two together on how it could be utilized for weight loss. So as soon as it got associated with weight loss, that's when everybody went bonkers for it. And that's when everybody went pretty crazy for it. So marketing, influencers, and even studies, so many studies, like how does a study get funded? It only gets funded and backed one way. So that all these things have some sort of, you can root it back to some sort of agenda. It doesn't even have to be a bad agenda. It's rooted back to an agenda usually.
There's things. There's a lot of reasons it's important to be skeptical. I think that the way I look at things is I have an open level of skepticism. When somebody says something like they say, oh, drink your pee, bro, it's going to be great. I'm going to look at them sideways. I'm not going to immediately think it's bullshit, though, because there's a lot of things out there that could potentially have some benefits, but it doesn't also mean that I'm going to go to the bathroom right now, piss in a cup, and then down it.
But maybe if you had some problem that you just couldn't solve and you're like, man, I've been sick for a long time and people keep mentioning it to you. You tried a bunch of different things. You went to a doctor. You communicated with as many people as possible. And you're like, this damn thing won't go away. Yeah. And someone's like, dude, I told you, all you got to do is. Then maybe you start to just kind of look for that. Maybe that's where you end up listening to the influencer about like drinking your own piss or something like that.
Hey, that's where the carnivore diet has been like a godsend for a lot of people, though, because, and I think it's great how a lot of people do talk about the carnivore diet with a high level of nuance. Who's the guy who we had on the show recently? He's getting in fights with so many people like Lane and stuff right now. It's kind of funny. Guy with glasses, Nick. Is his name?
Oh, Nick Norwitz?
Nick Norwitz, yeah. Right? I think it's great to look at Nick's content on YouTube if any of you are interested in it, because he talks about the carnivore diet with a high level of nuance, because it's great for a lot of people. Doesn't mean that everyone needs to do carnivore, but some people have done carnivore and have found a lot of benefits for autoimmune issues. Some people have found benefits for digestion. Some people have like had just so many issues they couldn't figure out. They go carnivore, issues go away. They reintroduce some foods, the issues is no longer there. A doctor would have never told them to do that, right? So it's one of those things where it's like, again, you can have a high level of skepticism, but then you can also just give things a shot for yourself, because it's Oxy, OxyContin, right? I think in the 80s and 90s, that was something that doctors were putting forward for a lot of people as being super healthy. But we find out that it was pretty much a pharma shill, right? Cigarettes used to be something that were super seen as healthy in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. So what I'm saying is like, with everything you hear, not just from this show, not just from people online, but with everything you hear, you should have a slight level of skepticism. And I think that there probably should be some skepticism when it comes to just the wide use of Ozempic right now. I don't think you shouldn't use it if you're someone who is finding it useful and healthy, because I'm seeing so many people's transformations and it's wonderful to see. But also, being dependent on medication forever probably isn't the healthiest thing for you, even though everyone's doing it. So it's just like, you should always be careful about everything.
Yeah, when it comes to a drug or a supplement, I think, the things that we just take, things that we take for ourselves, not going to really take care of us the way that we would like. The best thing to take care of you is yourself and your habits. We drill that all day long. We talk about that all the time. That's always going to be a factor. And when you're someone that might utilize Ozempic, that could be a good time to also work on your habits, to work on learning to say no to certain foods, or learning to not, overeat at certain periods. I mean, I know for myself, I even still have issues like overeating. Like, I like to eat and then I'm totally full. I'm totally fine. I ate everything I needed to eat, but I want to eat more. And it's something that even with fasting and even with a lot of intervention and a lot of other things I've done, I have way better control over it now. It's not as bad as it used to be, but I like going beyond the limit for some reason with something like that.
Yeah. There's a lot. I mean, I think another thing too is when we look at kind of how low-fat diets were put forward as being like super healthy, and high-fat was seen as being extremely unhealthy. And then we find out later that it's not. It's actually quite the opposite. That fat isn't bad for you, that it's not going to lead you to an early death and super high cholesterol, that there's a lot, again, of nuance when it comes to that nutrition. But what were you seeing when you went to a hospital? When you went to your doctor's going to tell you lower your fat intake. And again, I'm not saying not listening to your doctor, but I'm saying there should be a high level of some skepticism everywhere. But at the end of the day, it is your responsibility to try out some of these health remedies for yourself if you've heard it enough, if you've found it like, if it's something that interests you a bit for your health. But at the same time, remember, the foundational things are going to take you the farthest. The habits you have with the way you move, the habits you have with what you eat on a daily basis, the amount of rest you get over time, not smoking, drinking minimal, like these things are the big levers. And the other things, like, for example, we had Scott Schur on the show and he has, methylene blue. That is a mini lever. Like, I'm digging it. But the thing is, it's like, it's not the thing that's going to transform your health.
Right.
But it's the thing that can, if you're someone that's focused on performance, if you're someone who's like, you do a lot of deep work and you need to, if those are the things that interest you, it's like, it's one of those things that can give you a bit of an edge when it comes to things.
I will never go to a doctor ever again about my general health. All they want to do is put you on pills.
Really well said there by Dana White. Couldn't agree with him more. A lot of us are just trying to get jacked and tan. A lot of us just want to look good, feel good. And a lot of the symptoms that we might acquire as we get older, some of the things that we might have, high cholesterol or these various things, it's amazing to have somebody looking at your blood work as you're going through the process, as you're trying to become a better athlete, somebody that knows what they're doing. They can look at your cholesterol. They can look at the various markers that you have, and they can kind of see where you're at, and they can help guide you through that.
And there's a few aspects too, where it's like, yes, I mean, no shade to doctors, but a lot of times they do want to just stick you on medication. A lot of times there is supplementation that can help with this. At Merrick Health, these patient care coordinators are going to also look at the way you're living your lifestyle, because there's a lot of things you might be doing that if you just adjust that, boom, you could be at the right levels, including working with your testosterone.
And there's so many people that I know that are looking for, they're like, hey, should I do that? They're very curious. And they think that testosterone is going to all of a sudden kind of turn them into the Hulk. But that's not really what happens. It can be something that can be really great for your health, because you can just basically live your life a little stronger, just like you were maybe in your 20s and 30s.
And this is the last thing to keep in mind, guys. When you get your blood work done at a hospital, they're just looking at like these minimum levels. At Merrick Health, they try to bring you up to ideal levels for everything you're working with. Whereas if you go into a hospital and you have 300 nanograms per deciliter of test, you're good, bro, even though you're probably feeling like shit. At Merrick Health, they're going to try to figure out what things you can do in terms of your lifestyle. And if you're a candidate, potentially TRT. So these are things to pay attention to get you to your best self.
And what I love about it is a little bit of the back and forth that you get with the patient care coordinator. They're dissecting your blood work. It's not like you just get this email back and it's just like, hey, try these 5 things. Somebody's actually on the phone with you going over every step and what you should do. Sometimes it's supplementation, sometimes it's TRT, and sometimes it's simply just some lifestyle habit changes.
All right, guys, if you want to get your blood work checked and also get professional help from people who are going to be able to get you towards your best levels, head to merrickhealth.com and use code POWERPROJECT for 10% off any panel of your choice.
I think the hard part, too, is sometimes an influencer is kind of on the cutting edge. I believe the story with Sean Baker was he was just making tweet after tweet after tweet back when Twitter had tweets and it wasn't X. And he got the attention of Joe Rogan. And then he went on Rogan and the carnivore diet became insanely popular.
Really? That's how it started, huh? Or the popularity?
Yeah, that's a huge. I mean, my brother and I went on the show and we did talk about how my brother mentioned how like one of the diets that he did was meat and water and how we've been fans of that style of eating and stuff like that too. But then there was also Sean Baker, and then there's also Jordan Peterson, and of course there's Paul Saladino and Michaela Peterson and all that stuff too. And just, you know, it caught fire. You had multiple people saying, and I think once someone like Jordan Peterson says it, where you're like, well, this guy, you know, he's not a guy you're thinking about fitness wise. He's very thin. Mm-hmm. He's not a fitness influencer, right? And he's talking about utilizing it for some of the different issues that he had. And then his daughter, Michaela, same thing. And there's other people start talking about it. And you're like, well, if it's helping a lot of these people with these various things, maybe it could help me. I think that's the way people are viewing it. And I think it has been massively helpful. But, you know, Joe Rogan is a pioneer in a lot of ways, but he's also an influencer. He's got heavy influence. He's had some really huge names on his show of people, but he's also had a lot of fitness people that are maybe not as famous as like the Elon Musks and people like that he's had on the show. But anytime he's had someone on the show, it's like you just see this huge wave, this huge tsunami coming of like information, you know, coming from people kind of saying similar things because that caught fire so well on the Joe Rogan experience.
Mm-hmm. You know, I think this might sound a little bit cheesy, but the idea of like a fitness influencer, when people like you hear a Lane Norton or an Israel or some of these people, they say, "Oh, what are the influencers doing now?" But the whole idea, I think, it would be beneficial if you, as an individual, could have the influence over your family's health or the people around you, your network, right? I have a lot of people within my family, within the people that I know, that tend to send me a lot of questions about certain things as it pertains to their health. And I'm able to help them solve a lot of problems because the things that I've learned from my health and the health of people that I've worked with over the years. And I'm happy about that. I don't find it a negative thing at all being a fitness influencer and influencing people in terms of their health, because that's the only thing that I really care about. So I mean, if you listen to this show, you care about your health. It's good if people within your life are looking to you for some of those things, because you're someone that pays attention. I don't think it's a negative thing. Now, I understand when we are talking about fitness influencers right now, it comes within the context of you're just trying to sell a product. You're not, there's a level of lying and there's a level of just scamming, right? That's what we think about when we're talking about it in that type of context. But in essence, having a level of influence to help people shift their health is a very good thing. I think all of us, not just somebody with an Instagram or a YouTube channel, all of us have the capacity to affect the health of our families and the people in our general our general network of people we know. That's a good thing. That is an absolute good.
I have a lot of family members too that will ask, or friends, and they'll ask a question like, hey, what are your thoughts on methylene blue? And depending on the person, if it's somebody that I know has explored a lot of other things, then I'll say, oh, it'd probably be something great for you to give a try to. But for other people, you know, that maybe just they're not exercising that often, they're not doing the things that we talk about, I might, you know, want to have a conversation with them and just say like, I don't think it's really going to make any difference for you at this moment. If you really are curious about it and you think it would be interesting or fun to try it, then go ahead and give it a go. But it's not going to be something that's probably going to, like, you know, trigger you to all of a sudden take care of all your other health and to be able to have way better habits. So,
by the way, what happened to you in the Caribbean? And then also, before you answer that question, an interesting thing about methylene blue is that, like, you know, a lot of people, this is where consumer education comes into context, because some people will buy some methylene blue on Amazon, right? And Scott Scher, who's on the show, even mentioned like, yo, you buy this shit from a random source, that shit can be dangerous. A lot of this shit is tainted with BS that could negatively affect you. So it's one of those things. It's, if you only hear or see a title of methylene blue is amazing for your health, then you go on Amazon and just buy some methylene blue, or you go on some AliExpress, Chinese website and buy yourself some methylene blue and you ingest it, and then you get really sick.
You got to know. And also, if you are going to mess around with any of those things, you really have to know the dosage.
Yes.
I have many friends that are like, yeah, they're not sure. I'm not sure what I took. I'm like, oh man, like that really sucks. And I'll ask them, I'll say, oh, well, what does the bottle say? And then they'll send me a picture of the bottle. They'll show me front and back. There's no information on it.
Why would you put that in your system?
It might say like 50 milligrams in like the whole bottle or something, but then it doesn't tell you anything else. Or it might say, it gives you information that just gives you enough information not figure out what the hell's in the bottle.
We need to do an episode on supplement red flags, and we need to have like some visuals of things to pay attention to, because I would never take that. I would never ingest that.
No, you shouldn't.
Jeez.
You shouldn't. Anyway, yeah, so I went to the Caribbean. I went to St. Kitts for a handful of days with my wife, and we checked in, and then we laid out for a while. And then the next day I was walking to the gym in the morning, and one of the guys that works there, who's got very dark complexion, he stops me and goes, "Oh my God." He's like, your skin changed so much. And then he's just like, I didn't know you were one of us. And he gave me like a fist bump.
He was black?
He was black.
He was black, okay.
Yeah, it was really funny. But I did take some methylene blue. We had David Herrera on the show, and he showed us some pictures of when he was traveling with his wife and his family, and his skin was
getting closer. Man.
His skin was
actually quite close to me.
His skin got really dark. So I was like, I'll give it a try. So I used the prescriptions, the methylene blue, when I was out there, and supposedly it's supposed to help you to, I guess, absorb a little bit more blue light. So I took it and I got black.
Oh, you wish. You wish. Only in certain instances, though. So, Mark, you have been loving wearing these Paluvas for a long time. Why is it that you like these shoes that look like this?
I'm trying to get my feet to be jacked. You know, I think it's funny how sometimes people will, when I wear these shoes, they're like, oh, those are different. And I'm like, well, maybe you should blame God, because this is the human foot. This is the way that it looks. But Paluvas are awesome because it's going to allow you to train your feet and train your toes and allow for that toe spread, because you got the 5-finger toe thing going on. It's like put on a glove for your feet. It feels amazing.
It's like walking around with toe spacers. You know, we've been working on our feet for a long time now. You always hear the benefit of people talking about like these tribes who have gone without shoes forever, and they have this toe space and have these amazing feet. And these shoes will allow you to just passively get that back by walking around.
You don't realize what a disadvantage you're at when your foot is all clumped together from the football cleats or soccer cleats or whatever else you were wearing when you were young. And so it's nice to be able to splay your toes. In addition to that, though, one thing I love about Paluva is the fact that it's not a regular barefoot shoe. I do love barefoot shoes as well, but it also has appropriate padding. And when you're stepping on some crazy pebbles and rocks and different things, like when I'm out on a run, some terrain is a little different than others. I don't have to be worried that I'm going to get some sort of stabbing, crazy thing happening to my foot because it has an appropriate amount of cushion underneath the foot.
And guys, Palooza has a lot of different styles on their website. I think one of the newest styles they just came out with, which is a little bit more of a rigorous do, is the Strand ATR. It's not these are the Strands, but the ATRs have a little bit more. If you want to go hiking with them, you totally can.
Those are amazing. If you go out, throw those on and go sprint on a field, and your feet feel so strong, grabbing the grass and being able to actually grab the ground with your foot feels amazing.
I'm more of a chill guy with my Palooza, so I like the Zen slip-ons, but that's the thing. With Palooza, there's a lot of different options. So if you head to palooza.com and use code POWERPROJECT, you'll be able to save 15% off your entire purchase. And they also have toe socks. Their 5-finger toe socks are no show, so check those out too. Yeah, no, it's crazy. And there's this video, I think, of like what I've learned. And he's been doing you showed this to us. He's been doing a series on Brian Johnson, right? And this is the thing. I think Brian Johnson, and I'm not talking about Liver King now, I'm talking about
just anybody with the name Brian Johnson, just don't listen to them. There you go.
I mean, maybe we can play one of these videos.
Yeah, maybe you can play the one of the ones I sent to you, Ryan, where he talks about double speak, because I think that this pertains to everything we've been talking about.
Yeah.
And just for the record, I don't know Brian Johnson. I never met him.
Same.
So I'd love to meet him. He sounds like an interesting guy. Sounds like he's got interesting things going on.
And this isn't like, I don't think this is us saying that you should never listen to what he has to say.
Right.
Right. So.
Last June, when I ate nothing for 5 days straight,
113 hours fasted,
and then ran a marathon in 4 hours and 40 minutes.
Damn.
This makes me the healthiest person in the world. Is 5-day fast plus marathon an actual competition? Nope. Has anyone else ever done this? I don't know. I didn't check. This is day 10 of investigating if Brian Johnson's story is a scam.
My name is Brian Johnson. I became the most measured person in human history. I have the best comprehensive biomarkers of anybody on the planet. The healthiest person on planet Earth. We set a world record last year, epigenetic age reversal.
Wow. Brian is setting world records left and right.
The most measured person in human history. And one thing I do every day is 1 scoop of longevity mix.
You might be wondering why I became so suspicious of Brian Johnson. One big reason is Brian's doublespeak.
Doublespeak is language that pretends to communicate, but really doesn't. It is language designed to mislead.
Brian's favorite type of doublespeak is what William Lutz calls the 4th type of doublespeak. Inflated language that is designed to make the simple seem complex or to give an air of importance to people, things, or situations. For example, he doesn't say, I want to help people. He says,
trying to get life in this part of the galaxy to flourish.
Brian doesn't say people. He says the human species.
We as a species is a species for the species. The species is a species, the species is a species. The species is a species. New species as a species. So we as a species, I'm the first human to opt into an algorithm that takes better care of me than I can myself.
He's the first person ever to follow a diet plan, do exercise, and get blood tests.
I said, evening, Brian, you're fired. 5 p.m. to 10 p.m., I remove my ability to eat.
Yeah, many people do this. It's just called intermittent fasting.
We set a world record last year, epigenetic age reversal.
No one was competing for epigenetic age reversal, but by phrasing it like that, it sounds like he won some big competition.
Best biomarkers of anyone in the world.
On very big podcasts, he straightforwardly says he has the best biomarkers in the world.
I have the best comprehensive biomarkers of anybody.
But on a smaller channel, he admits that
I don't know anyone in the world who has better biomarkers than me currently. Now, I'm sure there are. They're just not as measured as I am. Now, I'm sure there are. They're just not as measured.
The issue is that he uses these claims to sell his expensive products.
I've arguably become the healthiest person on planet Earth. And now the same things I do every day are available to you. The best health protocol ever built. The most evidence-based stack in the entire world.
This is Brian's Blueprint co-founder, Kate Tolo.
Storytelling is the only thing that matters. You just got to have a good story. I really see myself as an operations manager for humanity, species, human species as a species, the species, the species, the species, 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 the species, the species. Like, you just gotta have a good story.
I set a world record last June when I ate nothing for fun.
Yeah, I mean, you can see how far people can go to try to get your attention. one thing I do think is cool. I think it's cool that he speaks differently than people. I think it's like if I'm going to go on a podcast, I'm going to probably juice up some of the stuff that I talk about.
I was curious what you were about to say next.
I'm probably going to juice up a little bit. I'm probably going to add a little, I'm not going to lie, but I'll probably maybe be more dramatic than normal. Like, am I lying? If I'm more animated than normal, or I'm more fired up, I'm more excited because of something somebody mentions. I'm trying to amplify something. Like, I think, of course, you're going to try to do that. You want to be engaging. This guy's doing a damn good job of getting publicity. But I think that the way that you can interpret this stuff without getting persuaded financially, or without I guess maybe, falling victim to doing too many of the protocols of some of these people, is to just kind of run it through like a checklist of things. Like, does it kind of pass your test? How does it stand up to like your current beliefs? Because your current beliefs, maybe they're not correct, but maybe they are. How does it stand up against other things that other people have said? So if you think to the Liver King, he was talking a lot about going outside and getting sunlight and stuff like that. And you're like, well, I've heard Andrew Huberman talk about that, get the morning sun. Like, that sounds like so then you start to kind of think about, okay, well, what's reasonable? I heard this guy, and this guy all talk about creatine. They all said 5 grams is a great place to start. Maybe get yourself up to 10 grams. I've heard people say if they take 20 grams of creatine, it starts to hurt their stomach. Okay, right? And you start to kind of dwindle it down. But I do think I hear it from a lot of people, even some of my friends, and maybe I'm guilty of it sometimes. I don't know. But I hear them over amplify stuff with words that aren't any further proof of what they're doing being awesome.
What do you mean?
As an example, I can say I've been walking and it's been amazing for me. I've been doing it for the last 15 years. I didn't say anything there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You're like, it's been amazing. The fact that it's been amazing for me is kind of cool, but then we got to get in depth of like
the context.
What does that mean? Has it helped?
Steps.
Has it helped you with anything? People just kind of putting these extra words in there that don't mean anything. Now, if I was to say, I started walking 15 years ago, I used to weigh 330 pounds. The walking, in addition to some good nutrition habits, some better sleep, it helped me go from 330 to 290 to 270 and so on. And nowadays I'm 220. That now we're getting into a different conversation. I didn't say anything about how amazing it is. I didn't talk about it being, I didn't talk about how long I did it. Somebody saying how long they did something for is pretty irrelevant unless they're trying to mention the fact that they maybe did something before it became popular. Like that would be maybe the only thing, but maybe they're trying to show you consistency. So, you said you started 15 years ago. Do you think a lot of your results came from the consistency? That would be the thing that we want to try to draw out of there. But it's hard to, we're in the space, so we kind of know what to look for. I don't know how well other people might know to look for certain things.
Yeah, it's annoying, I guess. And it's one of those things, again, that nothing necessarily happens quickly. In the context of Brian Johnson, like, I think it's good in terms of the overall, I guess, attention he's helping people bring to their habits. Because let me look on the good side. Brian has absolutely gotten people to quit smoking. He's gotten people to quit staying up late, which is what most people are most people are guilty of. He's probably gotten hundreds of thousands of people to stop eating multiple hours before bed, which makes a big difference. He's gotten people, hundreds of thousands of people, if not millions of people, to change their life without paying him anything. I can probably assume that, because probably a lot of people that have watched his content may have not even purchased his olive oil or his supplements, right? So he has positively affected the health of the people that he's sending this message to. Now, over time, he has his supplement regimen, et cetera, and he is someone that does things to a totally different level than most people. But we are too. Like, I have a sauna. I have a cold plunge. I have gymnastics rings set up in my living room. I have a rice bucket in front of my TV. I have sets of kettlebells and sandbags in my garage along with a boxing bag. I have kettlebell upstairs. I have set up my environment to make my health a priority.
You're driving to and from areas that have some sort of training in them all day.
And I do that because, like, I know how positive and effective it can have. And when I share these things, I try to encourage people to set up some of their environment so that it can serve their health. And it's benefited people, right? But with Brian, like, he has supplements that he sells. It's the consumer's choice if they choose to purchase those supplements and try it for themselves. I don't think he's scamming people. But yeah, some of the language he uses, it's tough. It's tough. And it can also go into like how you feel about him as a person. Because if you're someone who, you look at some of the stuff he says, like he's anti-meat, right? So he's already going to develop a lot of enemies there. He's already going to set up kind of like a team structure. Most people are going to be like, oh, I don't want to listen to this guy because he thinks meat isn't healthy, etc. Then it's now an us versus them for a lot of people. And some people will side with Brian and some people won't, but overall, he's a net positive. I am praying we don't find out anything super shitty about him, because I remember when we were talking about Liver King one day before the shit came out, I said something very similar where I was like, he has these supplements. He may or not may. At the time, we didn't know if he was on steroids, and most people were like, look at him. Of course he's on steroids.
He was claiming that he wasn't.
And I was like, he might be, he might not be. But overall, are people benefiting from some of the information he's putting forward? Yes. I said the exact thing about that Brian Johnson. I'm saying the same thing about this Brian Johnson. But it's true. Yeah. It's true. He's been a positive net good on people. And I don't, even though John, what I've learned, and he's going to be coming on the podcast soon, he's doing this 30-day series on Brian Johnson. There's a lot of negative things about what he might be doing, but there's also a lot of positives. And I think you can say that about literally everyone that has any level of influence. Trump. Mm-hmm. People love him, people hate him, but you can definitely count out a lot of horrible things this man has done. And there's probably some pretty decent things too. RFK Jr., there are some horrible things that he said, or some pretty shitty things. Like recently when he said that, when he made that comment about black people and immunity. And he was basing it off of some research that has been found out to be kind of bullshit. But there's some definite good things about RFK too. And I'm not, this is the thing. That's what I'm saying. There is a yin and a yang. So you have to have a level of healthy, myself, there has to be a healthy level of skepticism with the things that I put forward. You should try things if you're interested in them, but that doesn't mean that you should do everything I say. So it's tough, but you're an individual, and you got to make your choices, and you got to try things out for yourself, because it's your health at the end of the day. Not mine, not yours, not Ryan's. It's your specific health.
I first started hearing about transcriptions from Thomas DeLauer.
Yep.
And, Thomas is somebody, it's an animal with working out. You got a chance to work out with him. I worked out with him. And he's kind of always on the front lines of finding out about these new companies that have cool things. But I didn't really realize that Transcriptions was the first company to put out methylene blue. And now look at methylene blue. It's so popular. It's everywhere.
It's one of those things. If you guys listen to this podcast, I'm very iffy with the supplements that I take. Because there's a lot of shady stuff out there.
You got to be careful.
The great thing about Transcriptions is that when people want to get methylene blue, usually they'll go on Amazon, they'll go on these other sites. It's not third-party tested. It's not dosed. A lot of people end up with toxicity from the blue that they get because there's no testing of it. Transcriptions, they have third-party testing for the products. It's dosed, so you know easily what exact dose of methylene blue you're getting in each troche. So you're not making some type of mistake. There's not going to be anything in it. It's safe.
You can have it dissolve, and you can turn your whole world blue if you want, or you can just swallow it. They have two different types of methylene blue. They have one that is, I believe, dosed at 16 milligrams, and they have another one that's dosed at 50 milligrams. So make sure you check the milligrams. I don't recommend anybody start at 50 milligrams, but The 16 I feel is very safe. You can also score the troches and you can break them up into smaller bits.
Yeah, that's what I do.
And in addition to that, on top of the methylene blue, they have a lot of other great products and stuff as well. They got stuff for sleep. They got stuff for calming down, all kinds of things.
I gotta say, I use it about 2 or 3 times a week. I use it before jiu-jitsu. And the cool thing that I've noticed, and I've paid attention to this over the past few months, is that after sessions, I don't feel as tired. So it's almost like I've become more efficient with just the way I use my body in these hard sessions of grappling. And it's like, cool, that means that, I could go for longer if I wanted to, and my recovery is better affected. It's pretty great.
I know Dr. Scott Schur, we had him on the podcast, and he talked quite a bit about how he recommends methylene blue to a lot of the athletes that he works with.
Yeah.
And they're seeing some profound impacts. And one of the things I've heard about it is that it can enhance red light. So those of you doing red light therapy, or those of you that have some opportunities to get out into some good sunlight, it might be a good idea to try some methylene blue before you go out on your walk or run outside or whatever activity it is that you're going to do outside.
And this stuff is great, but please, first off, they have that stuff for staying calm. They have stuff for sleep. But remember, this stuff isn't a substitution for sleep. This isn't a substitution for taking care of your nutrition. This is supposed to be an add-on to all the things that we already should be doing. And it's going to make things so much better if you're doing everything else too.
And I think this is just a little different too than just adding some magnesium to your diet. I think this is a little different than...
Yeah.
Treat these things appropriately. Make sure you do some of your own research. But
if you're taking medications, SSRIs, you better talk to your doctor first. Don't be popping these things.
And if you're taking any medications at all, it'd be good to double, triple, quadruple check and make sure that you're safe. Transcriptions has a lot of great things that you need, so go and check out their website when you have the opportunity. Strength is never weakness, weakness never strength. Catch you guys later.
And, as far as people doing things for money, it's interesting if somebody's like in the beginning of their journey, or if it seems like the person doesn't really make a lot of money, people seem to be a fan of that. It's like somebody they sell one supplement, they sell like a pre-workout, they sell like a little gummy thing that you eat during your workout or something, and everyone's all happy for them. But as soon as it like blows up or it becomes really big, then for some reason people tend to have a little bit more exception to it.
John Cena's a sellout.
John Cena, myself, like people like, oh, you're always hawking something. But a lot of times I am hawking stuff because I like it. I just like certain things. I try certain things and then I end up really enjoying them. I love these body lever things. These things are awesome. So like I'm always using those, or I have.
You see, once Steve, the creator of the body lever, once he makes millions off of these things,
then everyone's going to hate him. I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but do you know the brand Alani?
Yeah.
They sold recently.
Oh, shit.
Look it up, Ryan.
That must have been something crazy.
Because it'd be good for you to see it without me saying anything.
God.
It's a way bigger amount than I've
you see it at Costco and I think I've seen it at Walmart, a Target at least. I don't know if Walmart, but what?
1.8 billion.
$1.8 billion. You got to zoom in, Ryan. $1.8 billion.
What? Congratulations.
Yeah. I had a friend of mine that sold a company for a lot of money too. He's like, I looked into it. It wasn't $1 billion. I was like, okay. Okay, relax. Don't get so competitive.
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
Isn't that wild?
That's absurd.
I was trying to figure it out because I'm like, so what I came up with in my head is that they have the women audience.
Yeah, 100%.
And then it's like, who else no one else has that. So like, what's that worth? Well, it's worth $1.8 billion apparently.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah, that's insane. But by the way, I just saw it on YouTube this morning. That's why I referenced. But you know, John Cena went heel.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. I saw it on my YouTube. I was like, let me watch this whole thing. Yeah, he went heel. It was pretty solid.
So yeah, I overheard him talking on something with somebody else about like him and The Rock or something being heels or something, but I didn't know. So he actually is back in the WWE and he turned heel.
Yeah. It was again. Who's this new? I forgot this new guy's name. Blonde hair. He's all American. What?
I'm not sure.
Shorter than The Rock. Is it Cody?
Cody Rhodes, maybe.
Cody Rhodes. Yeah. He fucked like it was a pretty good sequence. I'm gonna let you watch it.
That's probably great.
It's fun. I'll send it to you. Yeah.
It's so
he
funny.
kicked Cody Rhodes in the nuts in front of The Rock.
Oh man,
and then beat his ass, and then they both kind of went on him. And
I've talked to him about this forever. He said it would never happen. It would never happen. That's so great.
And the crowd was yelling, "You sell out! You sell." It was pretty great. It was pretty great. But the funny thing is that people were cheering on his heel transformation, which I found kind of odd. Mm-hmm. I would have expected to hear more boos and stuff, but
he still looks
John
amazing.
Cena.
Still insanely. Why are his arms so big? He can't get rid of his arms being that big. Not that he wants to, but
I really want to hold his wrist to see kind of how large it is.
It's bizarre.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's cool. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Anyway, kind of back to some of these, some of this influencer talk that we're chatting about here. It is very hard to distinguish whether an influencer is on the cutting edge or if they're just total, scam. It's hard to tell. And I think what I'm noticing is there's a lot of trends with influencers. Like right now, there's a lot of people sharing information about the sun. There's a lot of people sharing information about certain things. They just tend to they go in waves. I don't know why they happen in waves. I don't know why these things get discovered at particular times. But I think for the most part, I think most of the stuff that's being shared is good. I think for the most part, it is healthy. People are trying to encourage people to maybe just not only be good at squat, bench, deadlift, maybe be a little bit more versatile at some other things. If you enjoy squat, bench, and deadlift, as we said before, then go ahead and roll with that. And you don't have to do anything else. Mm-hmm. But in my opinion, it's a good idea to develop another skill set, to have another skill set, to be able to do some other things, to be able to go out and shoot some baskets, to be able to go lift some weights, to be able to go on a run or a bike ride or do some different things, I think is one of the points and one of the reasons for fitness.
Yeah. The early adopter thing I think is it's in every single sector. There are going to be people who are early adopters of solar, early adopters of electric self-driving cars, right? And for your health, we've been early adopters of a lot of things. Why? Because we pay attention. And we're lucky enough to, I guess.
We're not making any of it up. We're grabbing it from other people.
Yeah. And we're trying things out. I've been cold plunging and sauning for a long time before it got super trendy. And I found it to be helpful. Even when we played soccer back in college, we would do ice baths because when we had double days, the inflammation would just be a lot. And ice baths would totally just boom, you could go again and you could train hard again because blunts inflammation.
I think we've had some experts on the show and stuff too. I think it was maybe Andy Gelpin. I think you asked him a question about the sauna and he didn't agree with the way you were doing or something, but I think you just continued on your own intuition, the way that you feel with it. And I think that that's great. That's the other thing that makes this hard is the data, the scientific research, the peer reviewed study.
Yeah.
We've seen how that has worked out. That's not always 100%.
It can be slow. It generally is slow because there's going to be a lot of things that take a lot of time to be studied. So it's one of those things where are you interested in seeing how this may be beneficial for you or not? Because if not, then you can just depend on the scientific studies to tell you kind of what is good and what is not. Or you can kind of, because this is the thing, anecdotes aren't evidence, as people love to say. Mm-hmm. But when I hear anecdotes, I kind of look at those as a level of evidence. I'm going to pay attention to what people are noticing for themselves. I'm going to pay attention to a lot of those things, negative and positive. And then I'm going to try something and draw a conclusion for myself to see if it's something I'm going to stick with, which has allowed me to continue to make progress consistently.
Well, I mean, if you're someone that
you too, by the way,
if you're someone that's like a runner, and you go and run with 10 people and you run with them here and there and they keep reporting stuff to you. And then you're like, well, that doesn't really, that doesn't follow the thing I read in Runner's World magazine or whatever. It's just, you're going to be left behind.
Yeah.
You're going to be left in the dust when it comes to that kind of stuff. And I'm sure you see the same thing in jujitsu. You go to do certain things. So, some things should probably work very specific ways, but then you're like, well, it didn't work on that guy because that guy's like 6'5" and he's like super flexible, or that guy's 5'2" and he's like a block. Certain things are gonna work on certain people certain ways, and other things aren't gonna work. And it's a lot of trial and error. And hopefully, if you've learned anything from this show, is to be open-minded, but also, question the knowledge. Like, where is this coming from? Why is this person reporting this to you? I do think you should like kind of hold your horses whenever somebody seemingly kind of comes out of nowhere. Whenever you're scrolling through, and then all of a sudden someone's like popular, like out of nowhere, and then they have like a huge following, and then you just see him more and more and more and more, and you're like if it comes from obscurity, like you can't come from obscurity because you have a YouTube channel that you've had for a long time.
Yeah.
So even if all of a sudden you had 6 million subscribers on your YouTube channel, they could go back and see like, oh man, like he's been doing this shit for a long time.
And that's one thing I'm happy about. I'm happy you can see shit from like 2012 or 2013.
But there's a lot of people that like kind of come out of nowhere. And from what I've noticed, some of those people that come out of nowhere where you're like, I never saw this guy when he was 20. I never saw anything from this guy when he was 30. I never saw anything from this guy until all of a sudden he's like 40 or 50 years old, and boom, he's like explodes on the scene. Kind of like what we saw with Liver King. And there's a whole host of some other people that I've seen do similar things. It also gets to be really hard because of the like value assignment that we've kind of placed to some of these people, or the value assignment that we place to somebody that is running a particular podcast. I found this clip. This guy was on Huberman's podcast. And he just said something like pretty outrageous. And I'm like, that kind of stinks, because now it's like when we've had people on the show too, and people have been angry with us. Like, why didn't you interrupt that guy or yell at that guy or like tell that guy to go fuck off or something? It's like, well, we don't act that way. Like we're probably not going to ever act that way. But yeah, people have said outrageous shit on this podcast that we both disagree with. But when someone's on your show, you're trying to be respectful of their time and be respectful of the whole communication process. So people say some shit, sometimes a little sideways.
All right, this is how a woman can do 800 push-ups.
Well, minor. I mean, a push-up is pretty fast.
Yes, pretty fast.
Yeah. So you do 10 sets to maximum, 45 minutes total.
That's a lot of push-ups.
That's a lot of push-ups.
Yeah.
And so the interesting thing is they came in one day and they said, Dr. Heller, you cost us a lot of money. Why? Well, we had a formal dance this weekend. We all had to buy new sleeveless dresses.
Nice. It's a good problem to have. Good problem to have.
10 sets of
Oh, you missed the main part is in the beginning.
push-ups to muscle failure, with or without cooling.
Same regimen, 3 minutes of cooling in between sets of push-ups.
Right.
Okay.
Some of those young ladies reached over 800 push-ups.
Now, the total duration of the workout could be getting much longer as a consequence of doing more work.
No, it doesn't take you longer. Well, minor. I mean, a push-up is pretty fast.
Yes, pretty fast.
Yeah. So you do 10 sets to maximum, 45 minutes total.
That's a lot. That's
Anyway.
lot of push-ups.
So I'm guessing he's someone who did some research on the cool mitt.
I think that's what he's talking about. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that these women did like 800 push-ups during a workout. It's just like a ridiculous amount of push-ups that I don't know what group of women would be able to do 800 push-ups unless they were like gymnasts or something.
Mm-hmm. But this is an interesting thing, because I remember when Andrew came here and we were able to use some of that cooling technology stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
It does. The thing is like no one really has those devices unless they're in those contexts where you can like do an exercise and immediately cool the inflammation in the tissue, and it makes you wonder, because Andrew himself,
so it might work just fine. Like it does seem like it has some pretty good research behind it.
Yeah, and he's told us some ridiculous numbers of like some NFL guys that end up doing hundreds of dips when they were able to use that. So it does make you wonder, like, there could be some literal validity to this. It's just there's not many people who have access to that.
Right.
And if you guys are seeing this video, like this was a few years ago, so maybe at this point this technology might be better. But it makes you wonder, like, hey, shit, that could be pretty crazy. And I do think it makes you wonder, like, if it does work,
maybe it's patented by somebody or something, but if it does work really that well, like how come it didn't turn into anything? But just because it didn't turn into anything doesn't mean that it's not real.
And it doesn't mean it won't turn into something.
It might turn into something at some other point. Somebody else will repackage it or repurpose it. The other thing that gets to be confusing too, when people talk about, sometimes you hear like on certain shows, people will talk about like vitamin D and vitamin D levels and stuff, and they won't sometimes specify exactly what they're talking about. So sometimes someone will talk about like vitamin D levels and how important they are, but they're not separating out the fact that like it's probably more important to get your vitamin D naturally to go outside in the sun. And you might be able to supplement as well and get, benefits of both. But, and we've seen the same thing with testosterone where it's just over amplified, people making such a big deal about your actual testosterone amount. And I've seen the testosterone amount and people's free testosterone be all over the place.
Yeah.
And people look so vastly different. I know like Dr. Baker has reported many times that his like testosterone is always registers as being like really low.
Eugene Teo, we had on the show, he has low testosterone, low quote unquote testosterone, right?
But then no symptoms or side effects, so all this stuff just gets to be so hard to get through. And what I've kind of noticed over the years is just like no one really truly knows. And that's why you have to do some of your own testing.
That's what this all comes down to. But don't be looking for miracles. Like that's one of the things, the apple cider vinegar girl, she's selling a magic pill. We have constantly said magic pills don't exist, but Ozempic kind of does. Ozempic, if we're being real, is kind of magic, which is why I think y'all should be kind of skeptical. I'm not saying don't use it, but I'm saying like, just be careful, people, because that's scary.
Well, even with, we've had a bunch of people come in recently. We're talking about the wrist and the grip. And I know your wrist and your grip has improved a lot. And
it's taking time though, man.
You're happier with your forearms being more jacked and stuff. But then we had the guy in the other day, you had a hard time with a couple movements and he said, what's your limitation? He said, my wrist.
Yeah.
But I know you've been working on your wrist. So it just means you got to work on it long.
Absolutely. No, this is going to be a multi-year project. I think that's the take home I would love for everyone to have today is that, this is the power project and you should be your own project. And it's going to take a long time. It's going to take a while. I'm messing around with all this running stuff. It's just going to take years. But I'm excited. I'm excited to know, 10 years from now, I'll be way better than I am now. Like, am I going to be the greatest runner? I don't know. I'll be better than I am now by having that many more years under my belt. The way I've been looking at it with my sprinting and different things, like I've been saying I want to do a 400 meter in under 60 seconds, but I'm giving myself until 50. So I have many, many, many months until I'm 50. I think I'm 48. So I have some time. But I know you're bad. That was going to be a great place to end, but I want to mention this. It's one of those things where, you posted a running video, I think last year or maybe 2 years ago, people hardcore making fun of it. The last year you posted, people are noticing progress. This year you post, you're having even more progress. It's one of those things where all of us, whenever we try something, when we start off, you suck. People think you're ridiculous. Like I've seen so many people comment about like, oh, you were strength training and powerlifting, now you're doing this. But in a few years, when your gait is even smoother, when you're even faster, when it looks natural, right? And everyone's like, oh my God, this is so crazy. It's like, did you see all the years of this shit? Right? Like, that's why I'm happy I have jujitsu videos of when I first started on my channel, because I started that almost 10 years ago and people can see the years of just being pretty shitty at it, right? But that's how it is for everybody and it takes a long time.
I think we have to, reframe, from using certain words or terms, and I'm doing my best with it, but every once in a while I'll screw up and I'll say, oh man, I suck at this.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, this is like totally unfair. You didn't really give yourself a chance to practice it that much. You haven't done it that much. So what have you done if you did it a lot of times and you stink at it, then you could say, yeah, I actually really struggle with this. I've been working on it for a long time, but I still kind of suck. That kind of makes some sense. But to just kind of immediately say that you suck at something, the limiting beliefs, that we have are, I mean, even if someone's to say, well, why, Mark, why couldn't you run 55 seconds when you're 50 years old? Why wouldn't you what would stop you from doing that? 55 seconds when you're 50 years old. You know, why wouldn't you be, what would stop you from doing that? 55 seconds when you're 50 years old. You know, why wouldn't you be able to run 55 seconds when you're 50 years old? You know, why wouldn't you be, what would stop you from doing that? okay, that's harder. We just like made the challenge way more difficult, and maybe I'd have to devote a lot more of my life to being able to do that. But why wouldn't I be open to the fact that that could happen?
Mm-hmm.
It could definitely happen if it's something that I want to work for. If it's something that I choose to really go after, it's something that you can do. So the limiting beliefs are really tough. I don't think you always have to be super positive, super cheery all the time, but it definitely hurts you to use negative self-talk. So do your best not to do that. Strength is never weakness. Weakness is never strength. Catch you guys later. Bye.